What up, y'all? It is Jamba here again with another reaction video to Jenner, the gift that keeps on giving. I'll be honest, I actually recorded about 10 minutes of me reacting to this, and then something happens, and then I have to do it again. I probably shouldn't have mentioned that, but I'm still gonna react to it as if I didn't just watch the first. I think I watched maybe like the first like 3 minutes of this, so it's totally fine. I can say some of the same points again. I'm just being transparent. So let's get to this. What is this video even about? Look, this is a new video. I think he posted this today, and it's titled 4 hours ago. So this is fresh, y'all. Why young men aren't having sex? Now, look. This is something that's been talked about, rise of lonely men, and all this other stuff, and it's something I find pretty fascinating. Um, for personal and also reasons of just me caring about men relationships and dynamics and the future so I think these are relevant topics, and I don't consider myself to be a young man no more. After crossing 30, the big 30. I can't say that about myself, but I used to be a young man, and was it tough for me back then? Just not even just about sex, but just relationships and all that. And there's been some obstacles, but I think that the young dudes now got it pretty rough. And I guess we're gonna dive into the reasons as to why. Jenner, I like your stuff, man. I'm not gonna react to every one of your videos, but the ones that tickle my fancy in regards to my interests, I will. I shouldn't have used tickle my fancy. That sounded strange.
Young men are not having sex. Why is this? Well, I think there's a lot of reasons, but I want to talk about these shifts in society that I personally.
When I saw the joke that I made when I first recorded this was that at first I didn't know if that was Jenner or not. The guy, obviously, it is him. And then the joke that I made was that he looks like a young Peter Griffin. And then I said, yeah. So it's not as fresh now because I already did it, but you know, just just saying.
think have had the biggest impact because our parents' generation had a pretty equal amount of like guys and girls that were having sex as teenagers in their early 20s.
We don't necessarily know that. We weren't there.
And that's not the case for us. There's been a huge increase, even in the
Maybe it was. I don't know.
past like 5 years, in men versus women who are not having sex. And, I think that there are little things as far as.
I know that if ladies are watching this thing, they would be kind of baffled by this because to them, sex is like water, where it's always available. And if it's dirty or if it looks suspicious, they're just not going to drink it. And because it's freely available, they want to drink, like good water. Whereas sex for most men is kind of like like going out there and having to hunt for your own food. And there are some men, and I had to use this analogy because I'm not. Listen, you're gonna hear some of the same shit, but it's kind of like hunting for your own food. And then there's some men who go out there and they have a rifle. There are some men who go out there and they have a stick, and it's not a sharpened stick; it's just a fucking stick. Some men go out there with like pebbles. You say they ain't got nothing. And there's some men who go out there and hunt and they got a fucking Gatling gun. You know what I'm saying? There's some men who go out there and hunt and they got a nuclear warhead. So the point of the matter is that men always have to the quest for us when it comes to getting our needs met are so vastly different that when I think that when women hear this statistic, often they might laugh or think that it's like kind of crazy, and they might think that these men must be so sorry that they're not able to get their needs met. But in reality, it's so I just don't think they would be able to necessarily put themselves in the man's shoes because they just never had to be on that side. I mean, I guess you could say if a woman has pursued women, but I even think that women have much different standards for women if they do, go that direction, if they are fluid in their sexuality. I think that women have much different standards for women than they do for men when they do deal with men, like height. I think that there are women who would not date a guy who's under 5'11", 6 feet, but they'll date a woman who's like shorter than them. You know what I mean? Like, so, and I could be wrong. I'm not. I'm just telling you what I've observed.
There's like more women being LGBTQ, men having lower testosterone than our parents' generations.
One thing I was saying was that if that might be a good thing, I know like low testosterone being a good thing. I'm saying it could be a good thing because if young men had much higher testosterone and they're out there not getting their needs met, that could result in quite a bit more violence. And I'm just saying, I'm not even saying that type of like mass deletion type of violence. I'm just saying violence, just like in general. Like I don't think that's necessarily the best mix, if you will. So even though yes, it's not good that men have low testosterone, given the circumstances, I think that it's a way of I think men are just a lot more sedated. Um, and that could be the government's doing. I don't know.
Stuff like that. But what I really think is the main driver behind this is the death of monogamy and the popularity, or at least like growing popularity, of hypergamy and polygamy.
I also said that hypergamy has always been around. I mean, I think that women liking men who have certain characteristics have been around since the beginning of time or the beginning of humanity. Polygamy, yeah, that's where we are now. We're in a soft polygamy situation when you have rosters and things of this nature and open relationships. That is polygamy. So he's correct on that.
Where it's becoming more and more normalized for women to have sex with more attractive dudes without.
And the women are loving it. So the women are listening to this. They're like, yes, and like, but I will say this though, ladies. I mean, yeah, I mean, look, and I was saying this when I was in the first recording. You know, good on you if you're out there getting your swerve on. You're out there, getting your needs met by, by the whoever. Ooh, he looked good, and look, I look good to some of the women that I dealt with. So whatever, it's like but I would also like to say just to my one or two ladies who are watching this at this point, that at no point in human history, if you have been out there getting your swerve on with multiple men, which is that if that's what you want to do, then fine. Um, just know that there really hasn't been a point in human history like that where you had as much access to those caliber of looking dudes really ever. Even back in the 60s and 70s, women in the 80s and 90s, women were just relegated to the men around them. So you can find yourself, and I'm only using the term because that's the term that we all know, but you can find yourself a Chad in your own town. You can find yourself a Chad in the town over. You can find yourself a Chad in another country, in this, like, you have access to Chads and Tyrones. Again, I'm using these terms because you be, in these spaces, in the YouTube space, these are just the terms that we use. It's a guys who are very, very good looking, whether they're black or white or whatever. But y'all have a lot of far access to these men, and because those guys like practice, you can also get a turn as well. So, it just kind of, it is what it is. So you get to enjoy yourself, hey, wow, Chad, he was so good in bed. Well, yeah, I mean, he's been fucking since he was, 14 years old, and he hasn't skipped a week. Guy's 28 years old. Fellas, did you know that there are men out there who have fucked at least 2 or 3 times every week since they were like 16 years old? Yeah. Most guys, that is not the case. Not the case whatsoever. But for a lot of for some men and for a lot of women, that this, and look, I'm kind of going on here. I want to get back to the video. But I'm just kind of like letting the ladies know that, yeah, but what you're engaging in is not historically it's not a normal thing. Even men, look, men watching pornography historically is not a normal thing. It's not normal for a boy to have access to friggin' weird BDSM and porn and all this other weird shit at fucking 13, 14 years old. That's not a normal thing. So it's not just on one side. It's definitely on the men's side as well. And I also think that pornography, and I know the video is not about that, and maybe I'll touch on this on a different video. It has a similar effect on men that women's access to certain guys have an effect on them. So both sides of this equation here, this mad equation, are being affected by the world in very similar but different ways.
Any like actual realistic goal of having
I just be fucking talking, huh?
a relationship with that guy. And historically, having sex for a woman is an extremely, like, it was very, very dangerous and nerve wracking and high consequences, high risk, extremely high risk. Because when you
Yeah, we don't have those. Look at that baby.
get nut inside, that's going to put a baby inside you a high percentage of that time. So you need a guy that's going to stick around, take care of your kid, take care of you while you're pregnant.
Yeah. I mean, the chances, it was very risky at in most, prior to like the 60s and with the whole birth control thing. It's very high risk for a woman to engage in sexual activity with the man. So they had to be a lot more selective, and it can't just be like an attractive dude, but an attractive dude who was committed to them and was willing to provide for them. And also they didn't have like welfare and all this other like assistance that we have now today. Right. Hope y'all can hear me. I'm kind of need to project my voice more. I was going to say something shit.
You don't want to just let anybody do this. Well, nowadays, like, most girls have IUDs or they're on the pill, and worst case scenario, a lot of
Nah, I mean, not making a race thing. Most white girls are on birth control, but if you're dealing with other great races of women, they're not on it as much, buddy. I'm just saying, ladies, y'all know that y'all know what I'm talking about. Let me not get into that.
like girls will have abortions. I know women who have had abortions in college. I know women who have had abortions in high school. It's not really a rare thing, especially.
It is not. It is not. I try not to ask about smushmortions, but God dog it, they'll fucking tell me anyway. And I try to be, you know, non-judge. I try to make them feel comfortable in them. I mean, this has only happened like maybe once or twice. Yeah. So, but I fellas, I just try not to. Even if it's important, I just try not to fucking ask about that.
Especially today, like, girls are really pushed towards going towards their career versus having a family. Most
You gotta get the fucking bag, Jenner. What do you expect them to wait for you for you or me? No. They got, bro, like these women, they got careers, they got dreams. I'm not even trying to be funny or stupid. They do, similar to men, also have ambitions and things as well. So you know, I think that, you know, a lot of women do have that dilemma, and I think there's a balance. Because my whole thing that I tell women is that, because they say stuff like, oh well, you know, I was too busy, you know, I was too busy in college to find myself like a, you know, relationship. But I'm like, but okay, if how are you too busy in to get a relate now? If you're saying that you weren't ready for a relationship for whatever reason, then fine. But saying that you're too busy for a relationship in college is absurd to me, because if you go to college to get yourself a full-time job, then couldn't you also say that you're too busy with your full-time job to have a relationship too? And it seems like, you know, college would be a much better opportunity to find a relationship than in your career, because in your career you're usually at a certain location dealing with maybe sometimes similar people. You might, you know, obviously go out and stuff like that, but it just seems like you have a lot more opportunity in those 4, maybe 5 or 6 years of you being in college. I'm not gonna say that's one of my regrets necessarily, because I was for the most part relationship oriented in college. It just, you know, didn't work out. But women, I think that y'all just have a lot of the leverage there to find, if you want a relationship. So like I think you can definitely pursue your education, pursue your career while because y'all travel and go out and do fun stuff and have other hobbies and stuff anyway. But why not also, if you want to have a relationship, why not also prioritize that as well? Especially when the person that you're gonna be in a relationship with, or a person that you're gonna marry, have kids with, is the most important decision you ever make in your life, statistically, more so than your career, because your career is something that you can always change, right? So
Kind of like cultural role models that women have will push women towards aborting a baby or just putting off having kids
I think Jenna been working out a little bit.
in order to make an extra 15 grand to afford a useless handbag. It's disgusting. But
Hey, they buy more than just handbags, Jenner. That's very sexist of you. They will also buy makeup, right? They also buy Taylor Swift concert tickets. They also buy shoes. Okay, these women are not just these one-dimensional creatures who just buy bags. Okay, let's let's educate yourself.
that being said, the ability for women to have consequenceless sex came the rise of feminism, and there's also the push towards women in the workforce making more money, not really relying on men to provide for them. But I think really the main driver with the death of monogamy has been consequenceless sex, in a sense.
There's consequences, I mean, depending upon your belief system. The consequence could very well be your self-esteem. The consequences could be your health. The consequences could be they're there, and even future relationships, how you see men, how you see yourself. Because if you have sex with certain types of guys, and it could potentially make it harder. And this is, let's take women out of it. Let's just make it about men, women, or whoever. It's like, if you have sex with certain people and you have certain experiences, it may hinder your ability to connect with somebody who might not be able to match those sexual experiences, but may be good for you from a partner perspective. And that's kind of problematic, because it's like me. Like I have a certain type of woman that I like, right? And if I dealt with a woman who was like, oh man, like she was so good, and like in bed and blah 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 blah, and she was just perfect when she was naked and all this other shit. And then there's a person who doesn't look like that naked, but is a great partner. I might be less inclined to commit to that person, right? So the sex definitely does have consequences. It just may not have as deep, societal, like world ending consequences as it did, back in the dark ages and shit, right?
Where girls have kind of decided it's okay to use sex as a means of pleasure and be with guys that they can't realistically settle down with, but they can sleep with, because hyper attractive guys, the eights and nines and tens, they'll still have sex with like girls that are sixes or sevens.
And I know the ladies, I know. You're probably thinking, it's so fucked up that he's putting numbers on women, and it's all subjective and blah 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 blah. Like I get it, and it could be dehumanizing, but unfortunately, or maybe it's not unfortunately, but this is, yeah, men, we do see. And look, with the whole number system, look, I use a number system. I mean, like, okay, yeah, that girl's a 9, okay, that girl's a 6 or whatever. And I think for the most part, I mean, women also grade men as well. I think we're a little bit more fair, not a little bit more. We're a lot more fair, I think. Because to some of y'all, a guy can't be a 9 or a 10 if he's not above a certain height. Like he can't be. I was just talking to a woman earlier today. She was tall, singer, and she told me, it's like, it doesn't matter what he does, doesn't matter anything. And she would never date a guy. She's never dated a guy who was shorter than her. She even said that. Here's what she even said, right? She even said that a lot of the short guys will approach her and will be super confident. Her fucking words, super confident, and she still wouldn't give them a chance, like, at all, right? So, and I know that's what she's saying. Like, I don't know, like, maybe she could be lying. I was a stranger, so I don't know why she would be lying. What was my point? My point being was just that I think that men are just a lot more kind of lenient. Like, even though we grade y'all, and we might, what's the word? We might objectify y'all, just like how y'all be objectifying us. We're pretty fair. We're pretty fair.
So you've got girls that would historically be matching up with other sixes and other fives on the dating scales, just sleeping around with guys that they can't date, but that will sleep with them. And it's really frustrating for the guys that are actually on their level because they're not having any sex versus the guys that are really hyper attractive, very socially successful. Maybe if you're
Those guys are running through women like Usain Bolt. those dudes, yeah, it's for those guys. It's like it's like too easy. It's too easy for those guys.
a little older, making a lot of money, but really, I think for the most part, it's really a genetic thing where guys that are tall, handsome, are usually going to be socially successful and have status. These are the guys in high school and college that are having a lot of sex, and these guys are having probably more sex than historically really good-looking guys would have. But it leaves like the
Yeah, like it kind of reminds me of like there's that show that came out, Mad Men, which I've only seen like maybe 4 episodes because there's only so much I can take of white people smoking in elevators and black people wearing white gloves. I'm pretty sure it was a great show. I just couldn't really get into it. But Jack Draper is that the main character, the guy who looks like Bruce Wayne, played by John Hamm. And in the show, he has a mistress and a wife. So even him in that back then he was being basically kind of shared by 2 women, and obviously the wife didn't know. But even back then, a guy like that, a quote unquote Chad, a John Hamm, good looking guy, Bruce Wayne. Um, Even back then, he had women, a lot of women on him, but he just didn't have the reach that a guy like that would have today. You know what I'm saying? So even back then, it's like, okay, you might be dealing with your secretary and your wife, and then maybe a girl here and there, but that was kind of it. Nowadays, a guy who looks like that can get, a girl delivered to him like DoorDash, Pussy Dash, like that's what he can do now, like one after the other.
majority of guys.
And I know this might be crass, but I'm just the guys who know what I'm talking about will, if just comment, they'll confirm it. I've been roommates with these guys, and not even just in college, like even after college. So
It's like a good 70% of guys not really able to have sex or even get in relationships for the most part. Like it seems, at least from my
yeah, you can't get into relationships because you need to get the sex from a woman in order for her to qualify you to be in a relationship with. I talk about this in another video.
perspective, there are some guys that kind of break the matrix and break the mold, but for the most part, it's really difficult for an average guy in today's world to hold down a relationship. He's definitely not getting a lot of action from girls. They just kind of want to put themselves with the guy who's at the top of the hierarchy of status, and that usually is going to go hand in hand with how attractive and tall and socially successful he is, and those things all kind of run together. That's why I think a lot of young guys are not having any sex. It's not because they've decided to go monk mode and they've risen above.
Now they can say that they're going monk mode. They can lie. Hey, Bill. Hey, man, when's the last time you got some shit, man? To be honest with you, bro, like dead ass, like it's been about a year in 11 months, right? About a year and 12 months, to be honest with you, bro. Like a year and 12 months, you know what I'm saying? Like to be real. But the reason being is not because I can't get none, you know what I'm saying? Because like I'm me, but like the reason why is because I'm going monk mode. You know what I'm saying? Like what's like a monk, right? Like them bald niggas with like, and they wear like the robes and shit. Like that's what I'm trying to do, bro. Like I'm trying to like get like enlightenment and like really like hone in on my shit. You know what I'm saying? Like really like focus on me. You feel me? Focus on me. And they will say this shit. It's like you ain't going monk mode. You didn't choose monk mode. Monk mode chose you.
Above until the next realm. I think it's because they can't. It's because girls are not really interested in settling down with guys that are actually like on their attractive level. Girls just kind of want to like, run around, enjoy their youth, sleep around with the top like Chad type guys. And then eventually they hit their later 20s and they'll come around and start dating the guys.
Not in their later 20s. No, they'll keep doing it. they'll keep doing it. I used to people say, yeah, in their late 20s, they'll nah, a lot of the cases, not really. Not really. And ladies, this is look, I'm just kind of I'm on your side, ladies. I find this all to be funny at this point. I find this to be very funny and very interesting. But a lot of ladies, even in their early 30s, they're still, if they can, because like fellas, if you're able to sleep with, if you're a guy and you want to and you like and you enjoy and you can have like guilt free, you can fornicate guilt free. I can't fornicate guilt free. That's like my problem. There's always some guilt in the back of my head because of my beliefs. So it's never that's why I want to get, that's why, to be honest with you, I'd prefer to be married. Do I want to quote unquote get married? That's a whole sack of bananas, right? Or that's a whole thing. I'm not going to talk about that right now. But if you're a guy who's out there, you can enjoy guilt-free fornication, and you have the opportunity to sleep with women who are nines and tens and models and trainers and women who just like, wow, you just had the smorgasbord and you were able to just sleep with them and not really have any commitment. Most guys would also engage in that as well. So we can't necessarily crap on the women for doing something that most men would do as well. Now, I think the women need to be a little bit more honest about this type of stuff, right? If they're going to engage, and I do think that we're seeing a lot more honesty from women. I think that men are responding to that honesty, and a lot of this is happening on TikTok, where women will often use TikTok as a diary for they use it as a way to kind of confess and talk about a lot of the stuff that they've done, and they probably kind of should keep it to themselves, but we're glad that they share.
As they're on their level. And these guys are usually left kind of bitter and they get the raw end of the stick because a body count and sexual
Get the raw end of the stick, but they don't get to go raw with their stick.
history is always going to matter to a guy. And it's frustrating because the guys kind of see what's going on here. But at the same time,
Fucked up thing, body count matters to a guy, but body count does not matter to guys who have a lot of bodies. So guys who are out here and you got a body count like Freddy Krueger, you're not going to care if a woman has been, you're not going to, I shouldn't say you're not going to care as much. But if you're a guy and you've only had a few kills out here, you only had a few kills, then yeah, it's gonna, you deal with a woman and she got a graveyard, you're gonna feel some type of way about that.
time they don't have much power because it's the way society shifted. A lot of guys are not able to have sex. It's a part of life. Personally, I'm a Christian. I think you should wait to have sex till marriage. I didn't do
You wait to have sex in marriage, but if you ain't got a woman who's willing to marry you, then you ain't gonna get sex regardless.
that myself, so I can't sit here and preach to you. It's painful for a lot of young guys to not have any sexual success or dating success.
I think at the very least, men just ladies, y'all want to feel desired. Amazing, good. It makes sense for you to want to feel desired, to want to feel wanted, to want to feel appreciated, to want to feel loved, and just God to give you flowers and to validate you. That's awesome. Most of y'all at some point in time have felt a version of that. Even if it was a man approaching you, or it's like, I'm not saying all, but a lot of you have. A lot of guys have never been called sexy in their entire life. Should y'all, I'm not saying y'all should feel bad for these guys. I'm just telling you what is. So I think that the sex is I mean, that's kind of one thing, but the core of it, I think, is just feeling desired, and sex is the ultimate form of a man or a person perhaps feeling desired.
Success. It's something that, we are biologically programmed to reproduce. And if you go 25 years as a young guy without any sort of decent sexual success with a woman, it's supposed to hurt. It's in our DNA for that to be a warning, like a danger sign going off. So overall, no, I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a very bad thing that there's such a huge percent of guys that are not having sex. I think it's going to be a massive problem in the future. And
now, if this is actually the case, and I think that it is with men and all that, I'm trying to think of what are the potential societal repercussions. I think that it will lead to a lot of men being de-incentivized to do things that help support our infrastructure. That's what I think. And I think that's that, this is when I'm like, 40, 50, 60 and onward, right? I think that's when we'll start to feel the repercussions of this, because I think that if you're a man and if you don't have a woman or in thus family of your own in your life, or at least that being a possibility, because a lot of men, I know part of the reason why, you go to college and you get a career as a man is not just obviously to provide for yourself. You definitely have your own career goals and your own ambition, but part of it in totality, along with it, is you finding a woman and starting a family. And most men do want that. But if you remove that, if you remove that incentive or that possibility in a man's life, I think men are a lot less incentivized to progress forward and do hard things and to go out there and build the roads and go out there and build the skyscrapers and go out there and build the bridges and put in the plumbing and all the other stuff, right? Most, like, tell me if I'm wrong, most when you see construction workers who tend to be more older than younger, I need y'all to pay attention here. These people who you see welding and doing all the hard stuff, more times than not, they tend to have kids, a family, something to work for. Usually. Not all the time, but usually. So if you remove that, like if you just all of a sudden Thanos snapped a man's family away from him, do you think that he's going to like still wake up at 4 fucking 5 o'clock in the morning, put on his hard hat, put on his boots, put on his fucking orange jacket and shit, and go out there and get on the fucking highway and work his ass off until 5 o'clock at night? Do you think he's gonna? Are most men gonna still do that if they had like that's? Do you kind of see what I'm saying? Like the family, the kids, the experience, it's not even just about the sex at this point, like all of that, that is what pushes men often to do hard things usually. What I'm saying is, and obviously you can still do hard things and not have that be the main reason, right? I mean, it's like basketball. It's like most of the men that I played with did not play basketball to for women or for, like, they usually did it because they were passionate about the sport and they loved the sport, they loved the game, and they wanted to be great at the game, they wanted to compete. But that's a sport, right? That's something that is inherently fun. I don't think that digging into a damn ditch or getting into the sewers and being on a fucking high ass skyscraper and shit is the equivalent of a sport. So I think to do those things that inherently are probably not fun at all and often are dangerous or tough and requires a lot of skill and all this stuff, and you're not even getting paid that well necessarily. Often you want to provide for the people around you, and often that is a woman and the kids that you have together.
And I just want to point out, really think about what direction society is moving. It's easy to jump on the bandwagon and celebrate things like improvements in different areas. And I think that technology has a lot of great things that come along with it, but examine the double-edged sword and stuff like mass acceptance of birth control, a massive push towards feminism, a social movement that prioritizes a little extra capital versus a family, the death of religion. That's another huge thing that I didn't even really talk about much.
I
But
talk about that religion, that Christianity plug.
the death of religion, a lot of people would say this is such a great thing. And no matter what you believe,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, death of religion. Yeah. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
I think that it's important for people to have a general sense that there is a good and a bad in this world, and that they're going to be incentivized or at least like rewarded in the next life to do good, to treat people well. And also, when these religions push monogamy, and the major religions in America do,
Here's the thing about monogamy, and I would love to do a video kind of breaking monogamy down, and I would love to, if like two people were debating about monogamy versus polygamy or whatever. I like those topics as well, connected to this one. The great thing about monogamy that makes sense to me even at a young age, was simply monogamy was just a thing of everybody just gets one person because you're one person, you get one person. You know what I'm saying? Like that to me made sense. And if you are a person who was more attractive, then you'll probably just get the more an attractive person. And if you were, let's just say you were a man and you were a rich person, then okay, cool. You have more leeway to get yourself a really attractive person because that attractive person would have more choice and she can choose you because you know, you have resources and also maybe you're very attractive person. And if you're a person that's not very attractive, then okay, well, shit, let's get yourself another unattractive person and y'all just make it work. So it always made sense to me. And that was kind of like everybody gets one, but now, you know, one of the 10 commandments is thou shalt not covet. And it's kind of like, I think it's like you see a person that you want and that person is dealing with these other people, but you want that person too. So you'd rather, as opposed to just getting your own person, you'd rather go over there to get that person because you want you're coveting, you want that person so bad, right? And this is, I'm not even just talking about women here. I'm just talking just in general, right? I'm being genderless when I'm saying this, right? But yeah, I don't. I'm. What is the ladies, gentlemen? What is the bad parts of monogamy? I'm curious. There's probably a video breaking it down, but I'm not going to watch it now.
It kind of helps set those standards that keep things in order, that keeps life for an everyday guy and an everyday girl kind of in this like set structure that is meant to help good people and families thrive. And that's kind of what society is meant to do. Like a good society helps everyday people be able to afford basic necessities, to have a family and do well. As far as like owning
It sounds good to me.
some assets, living a good life, and dying. That's not what America's really become. America's become a massive strip mall for people to try to maximize pleasure. It's kind of become a race to the bottom. It's sad. Young guys should not be struggling as much as we are and getting as little sympathy as we are.
Hey man, you just got to fucking step your game up, bruh. You got to step your fucking game up, man. Like, bro, if you're not out here, like, first of all, bro, if women want tall, good-looking, rich, athletic entrepreneurs with G wagons, then that's what the fuck you better be, bro. And if you're not that, then you need to look at yourself in the fucking mirror. If you don't have a G wagon, if you don't have a nice penthouse apartment, if you don't have not just a G wagon and a Tesla, if you don't have a G wagon and a Tesla, if you're not out here benching at least 450 pounds, like just off rip, right? If you're not, if you don't have dreads, if you're not, bro, if you're not the guy that they're looking for, then that's on you. You know what I'm saying? Like, so all this having sympathy for men, bro, like life is just gonna fucking pass you by, bro. And this is for any man listening to this. I'm sorry, I can't. Sometimes y'all, I don't know. I'm joking. I'm kind of not. I am. Let me rewind it. People don't care about like what people don't care. Hold on a second.
Young guys should not be struggling as much as we are.
That's the thing. People don't care about that because young men have always fucking struggled in somewhere. That's why I was kind of sort of getting to, but not in the best way. Young men in some way, shape, or form have always struggled. We just have a different struggle, but our lives are a lot easier in a lot of ways than they've ever been in human history. We don't have fucking war. We don't have fucking famine. We don't have to worry about fucking Genghis Khan, you know, slaughtering motherfuckers across the globe. We don't have to worry about famine and I know we had COVID, but young men have it. I'm just being honest. Young men and people do, at least here, if we're talking about in the Western world, have it. I know there's parts of the world where it fucking sucks. I'm talking about where this motherfucker lives and where I live. Young men have it pretty good, all things considered. It's just that in the dating women area, is it pretty damn bad in relation to how it used to be a few decades ago, or even a decade ago. So I'm not going to feel bad for us in particular. It does suck, but you know, let's not be too hyperbolic here.
And getting as little sympathy as we are. And I'm a very lucky dude. I'm not trying to sit here and like, act like I'm some sort of incel dude and I'm struggling. I'm not, I'm really not. Like I'm extremely blessed and lucky. I've done well with women. I'm 6'6". I can't be that
You're
upset about
six
the
foot
parts.
six. Oh, so am I. Oh no, he's sick. Shit, I didn't even know he was that tall. Yeah, no, you tall and white. That's like having 3 Infinity Stones. You tall and white. Being tall and black is good too, obviously. But when you're tall, here's the difference, right? When you're tall and black, you kind of have to hoop or hooped. You either need to be hooping currently or just stopped hooping because people just kind of expect that out of you. Even the woman who I saw today, the singer girl, because I thought that she was a model. It turns out that she was a singer, right? And then she asked me what I did, and she thought I was an athlete, and I had to disappoint her. I'm like, no, I'm not an athlete. No, you know what I'm saying? So you being like, because women, y'all be stereotyping us sometimes, but if you a white guy and you tall, people just don't automatically think that he must play for the Mavericks. They're not doing that. So you can be a tall white guy and play the guitar or like be an accountant. Like, you're just a tall white guy. But if you're that tall, if you're like 6'6", 6'7", and you're a black dude, it's a bit more disappointing to people when you don't play sports. So, not saying it's like that bad of a thing. I'm just saying, but no, tall white guys, yeah, y'all. And I tell black dudes this, and black dudes, y'all get mad when I say that white boys white boys are killing it. I tell them that, and they like, nuh-uh, they corny, they ain't got no game. I'm like, niggas, them white boys don't need game. The whiteness in them, especially if you're a white dude who looks good, you tall, that they don't need niggas be talking about mouthpiece. White these this he don't need no mouthpiece. That's the difference. That's the difference.
I was dealt, but I do recognize that things are shifting and it's not in a good way. I don't really have too much.
I want to know how I know they don't need no mouthpiece. A white boy, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna do a whole video on this. I'm gonna do and it's gonna be a non-reaction video where I kind of break down the differences. A white boy can go to an event or a spot where there's dancing, and he can dance and be a terrible dancer, and women will still fuck with him. But if a black dude were to do the same thing and go to the event and dance and be a bad dancer, it's not the same. Tell me if I'm wrong. A white boy can, I don't know why I'm looking at my bananas over there, but a white boy can actually get away with being a bad dancer. I'm just using this as one example. One example. So,
time left on this video, but little call to action stuff you can try to do is vote and try to support politicians that are going to push.
Oh man, we're getting political. Vote for what?
For a more conservative social movement.
Conservative. They're not going to do nothing for you. What is Trump? Is he going to put? We got to put more pussy on the ballot. Like what? How was? I don't know, bro. I don't know what you're trying to do here, man.
More religious based stuff. I'm a Christian. I would highly recommend that you double think what you believe about life. Maybe get involved in a church. Try to find women who have taken sex seriously, because you don't really want a girl that has had a lot more sexual experience than you've had. And if you've had no sexual experience, you want to try to find a woman who has probably got close to that. And you're not going to find too many on.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop the video now before we get into some other territory. What's like the thesis of all this, right? Shit, 44 minutes. Damn, I didn't realize how long it's been. I'm gonna end this video right now, and my battery's low. So look, man, like and subscribe. This has been another Jenner video. I'm gonna try to link the video on the description. And yeah, man, I'm gonna come back, bro.